Hoichi the Earless by Lafcadio Hearn. More than 700 years ago, at Dan-no-ura in the Straits of Shimonoseki, the final battle of the long war between the Taira, also called the Heike, and the Minamoto, also called the Genji, was fought. There the Heike were utterly destroyed, together with their women and children, and with their infant emperor, remembered today as Emperor Antoku. For 700 years afterward, the sea and the shore were haunted by their vengeful spirits. Elsewhere I have told readers about the strange crabs found there, the Heike crabs, whose backs seem human faces, and are said to be the souls of Heike warriors. But many other wonders are seen and heard along that coast. On dark nights, countless ghost fires drift along the water's edge or flicker over the waves. The pale blue lights fishermen call onibi, the demon fire. And when the wind rises, great cries like the clamor of battle come from the sea. The Heike dead were once far more restless. At night they would appear beside passing boats and try to sink them, or lie in wait for swimmers to drag them down. To appease these dead, a Buddhist temple was built at Akamagaseki, Amidaji, with its graveyard by the shore. There stood several stones engraved with the names of the drowned emperor and his illustrious retainers, and Buddhist services were duly performed for their spirits. After the founding of the temple and the making of the graves, the Heike caused fewer calamities. Yet strange things still happened from time to time, proof that they had not found perfect peace. Some hundreds of years ago, there lived at Akamagaseki a blind man named Hoichi. He was famed for chanting and for the biwa. Trained from childhood, he surpassed his masters while still a boy. As a professional biwa minstrel, he became celebrated for reciting the tales of the Heike and the Genji. And when he sang of the Battle of Dan-no-ura, even demons could not hold back their tears. At the start of his career, Hoichi was very poor. But he had a kind friend, the priest of Amidaji, who loved poetry and music. He often invited Hoichi to the temple to play and to chant. Later, astonished by the boy's skill, the priest told him to make the temple his home, and Hoichi gratefully accepted. He was given a room, and in return for board and lodging, he was asked only to please the priest by playing the biwa on evenings when there was no other business. One hot summer night, the priest was called to conduct a service at the house of a deceased parishioner. He went out with his attendant, leaving Hoichi alone at the temple. To cool himself, the blind Hoichi sat on the veranda outside his sleeping room, which looked down on a small rear garden. He waited for the priest to return, easing his loneliness by practicing the biwa. Midnight passed, yet the priest did not come back. The air was still so hot that he could not be at ease indoors, so he remained outside. At length he heard footsteps approaching from the back gate. Someone crossed the garden, came up to the veranda, and stopped directly before him. It was not the priest. A deep, powerful voice called the blind man's name. A rude, abrupt voice called his name, as a samurai might summon a low servant.
Hoichi.
Hoichi was so startled that he could not answer. Then the voice, in a tone of command, called again.
Hoichi.
Yes?
The blind man replied, shrinking before the threat.
I am blind. I do not know who calls me.
The stranger softened his words.
Do not be afraid. I live near this temple and was sent to bring you a message. My lord is a person of very high rank. He is staying here in Akamagaseki with a splendid retinue, and today he went to view the field of Dan-no-ura. He has heard that you are skillful in telling the tale of that war, and wishes to hear your performance. Take your biwa and come with me at once to the house where the noble persons await.
In those days, one could not refuse a samurai's order. Hoichi put on his straw sandals, took up his biwa, and went out with the stranger. The guide led him expertly, but Hoichi had to walk very fast. The hand that guided him felt like iron. The clatter of the warrior's steps told Hoichi that the man wore full armor. He must be a guard of the Lord's quarters. Hoichi's first fear faded, and he began to think of his good fortune. For the messenger had said, a very high rank, so the Lord who wanted to hear him must be a great daimyo. The samurai halted. Hoichi sensed a great gate before them. He had not known of any gate so large in that quarter except the main gate of Amidaji, and he wondered.
Open the gate,
the samurai called. There was the sound of a bar drawn back, and they entered. They crossed a wide court and stopped before another entrance. The warrior shouted,
Someone within. I have brought Hoichi.
Hurried footsteps approached. Sliding doors and shutters opened. Women's voices murmured. From their speech, Hoichi knew they were attendants of a noble house, though he could not guess where he was. He was led up several stone steps. At the last step, he was told to remove his sandals. Women's hands guided him across endless stretches of polished boards, around more pillars than he could remember, over a vast floor laid with tatami, to the center of a great room. Hoichi felt that many people were gathered there. The rustle of silk was like the leaves of a forest. Many voices murmured in low tones, and the speech was courtly. He was told to be at ease, and felt a cushion prepared for him. He sat, tuned his biwa, and a woman's voice, which he took to be the house matron, said,
It is desired that you recite the tale of the heike to the accompaniment of your biwa.
To tell it all would take many nights. Hoichi asked,
I cannot recite the whole. Which section does my lord desire?
The woman answered,
Tell of the Battle of Dan-no-ura. That passage is the most moving.
Hoichi raised his voice and sang the fierce sea battle. With his biwa, he made the sound of oars pulling, of boats surging forward, of arrows hissing, of men shouting and stamping, of blades ringing on helmets, and of the splash of the fallen into the sea. Between the sections, he heard whispers at his sides. What a master of the biwa! In our province, we have never heard such playing. There is no singer like Hoichi in all the land. Heartened, he played and sang still better, and the gathering grew hushed with wonder. But when he told of the fate of the women and children, and of the nun of the second rank who entered the sea with the young emperor in her arms, all the listeners gave a long, shuddering cry of anguish, and then they wept aloud in confusion. Hoichi himself was amazed at the intensity of the grief he had aroused. For a time the sobbing continued, then the weeping faded into deep silence. And in that stillness, Hoichi heard the voice of the woman he took to be the elder. The woman said, "We had heard that you are a master of the biwa, and that none can match your chanting. But we did not imagine such skill as you have shown tonight. Our Lord was greatly pleased. He intends to reward you well, and I am to tell you so. Moreover, for the next 6 nights, he desires that you perform once each night before him. After that he will likely depart on his journey. Therefore come here again tomorrow night at the same hour. The same retainer who guided you tonight will come to escort you. There is one more instruction. While our Lord remains in Akamagaseki, you must tell no one that you come to this palace. This is a journey in concealment. You are strictly commanded to speak of none of this. Now you may return to your temple at your convenience." Hoichi gave full thanks. The woman led him to the entrance where the same retainer was waiting. He took Hoichi home and left him at the rear veranda of the temple. Hoichi returned near daybreak. No one noticed that he had been away. The priest had come back very late and supposed Hoichi was asleep. During the day, Hoichi was able to rest a little, and he said nothing about the strange affair. The next night the samurai came again and led Hoichi to the noble gathering. He chanted once more and won the same success as before. But during this second absence it was discovered by chance that Hoichi was not in the temple. When he returned in the morning, the priest summoned him. In a gentle tone, like a mild reproof, he said,
"Hoichi, we have been very anxious about you. You are blind. It is dangerous to go out alone so late. Why did you go without telling us? If you had told me, I would have sent a servant to accompany you. And where have you been?"
Hoichi answered evasively,
Forgive me, Reverend. I had a small, private matter. It could not be done at any other time.
Because Hoichi kept silent, the priest felt not only concern but alarm. Something was unnatural. He feared the blind youth might be possessed or deceived. He asked no more then, but secretly instructed the temple servant to watch Hoichi's movements, and if he went out again after dark, to follow him. The very next night, the temple servants saw Hoichi slip out. They lit lanterns and followed. It was raining and very dark. Before they could reach the road, he had already vanished. He must have walked very fast, which was strange for a blind man, and the road was bad. They hurried through the town and asked at the houses he often visited, but no one had seen him. At last, returning by the beach road, they heard the strong sound of a biwa coming from the cemetery of Amidaji. They were astonished. Except for 2 or 3 ghost lights, the place was utterly dark. They ran into the graveyard, and by the light of their lanterns they found Hoichi sitting alone before the memorial of Emperor Antoku, in the rain, playing his biwa and chanting loudly the lay of the Battle of Dan-no-ura. Behind him and around him, on many graves, the fires of the dead burned like candles. Never had anyone seen so many will-o'-the-wisps. Hoichi, Hoichi, the servants called. You are bewitched. Hoichi. But the blind man seemed not to hear. He struck the strings even more fiercely and chanted the battle more loudly. They seized him and spoke into his ear. Hoichi, come home at once with us. Hoichi scolded them.
How dare you hinder me before these noble persons?
For all the eeriness of the matter, the servants could not help laughing. Convinced that he was under a spell, they lifted him to his feet and carried him back to the temple. At the priest's order, he took off his wet clothes, was dressed in dry garments, and was given food and drink. Then the priest pressed him to explain this astounding conduct. Hoichi hesitated a long time. At last he understood that he had alarmed and angered the kindly priest. He broke his silence and told everything. From the first coming of the samurai, the priest said,
Poor man. Hoichi, you are in great danger. It was most unfortunate that you did not tell me sooner. Your marvelous skill has drawn you into a strange peril. You have not been visiting any human house. You have been spending your nights among the graves of the Heike. Tonight, the men saw you sitting in the rain before the memorial of Emperor Antoku. All that you imagined was illusion, except the coming of the dead. Once you have obeyed the words of the dead, your body is at their mercy. If, after all that has happened, you obey them again, they will tear you to pieces. In any case, sooner or later, they will kill you. I cannot stay with you tonight. I have been called to conduct another service. But before I go, to guard your body, I must write the Holy Sutra upon you.
Before sunset, the priest and the acolyte stripped Hoichi, and with brushes, wrote the text of the Heart Sutra over every part of his body: chest, back, head, face, neck, hands, and feet, even on the soles. When they had finished, the priest said,
When I go out tonight, sit on the veranda at once and wait. A messenger will come. No matter what happens, do not answer and do not move. Speak no word. Sit in silence as if in meditation. If you stir or make even the least sound, you will be cut to pieces. Do not be afraid, and do not call for help. Help would not save you. If you do exactly as I say, the danger will pass, and there will be nothing to fear.
After dark, the priest and the acolyte left. Hoichi sat on the veranda as instructed. He set his biwa beside him, took a meditative posture, and kept perfectly still. He did not cough. He scarcely breathed aloud. He waited for hours. Footsteps came from the road. They passed through the gate, crossed the garden, and halted before the veranda, directly in front of him.
Hoichi,
called a deep voice. The blind man held his breath and did not move.
Hoichi,
the terrible voice called again. A third time it came, more savage.
Hoichi.
Hoichi sat as still as stone. Then the voice muttered in vexation.
There is no answer. This will not do. Where is he? I must find him.
Heavy steps mounted the veranda. They came close and stopped at his side. For a while there was utter stillness. Hoichi felt his whole body tremble with the beating of his heart. At last a rough voice spoke right beside him.
Here is a biwa, but as for the biwa player, there are only 2 ears. No wonder there is no answer. There is no mouth to speak. Nothing remains of the minstrel's body except the 2 ears. Very well. I will take these ears to my lord as proof that I have obeyed as far as possible.
In that instant, iron-hard fingers seized both ears and tore them away. The pain was terrible, but he uttered no cry. The heavy steps retreated along the veranda, down into the garden, toward the road, and were gone. Hoichi felt warm, thick liquid running from both sides of his head. Yet he did not raise his hands. Before sunrise, the priest returned. Hurrying to the rear veranda, he slipped in something sticky and shuddered with a cry. By the light of his lantern, he saw that it was blood. But he also saw Hoichi still seated in meditation, blood streaming from his wounds.
Poor Hoichi,
the priest cried.
What has happened? Are you hurt?
Hearing the priest's voice, the blind man felt safe. He burst into tears and told what had happened.
Poor Hoichi,
the priest exclaimed.
This is my fault. I wrote the sutra over your whole body, but the ears were left bare. I told the acolyte to write on them, and I failed to make sure he had done it. What is done cannot be undone. We must heal the wounds at once. Take heart, the danger is over now. You will never again be troubled by such visitors.
With the help of a kindly doctor, Hoichi soon recovered. The tale of the marvel spread everywhere, and he became famous at once. Many noble persons came to Akamagaseki to hear his recitation, and he received rich gifts. He grew prosperous. But from that time onward, he was known only by the name Hoichi the Earless. Thank you for listening until the end. For anyone who loves Japanese literature, or just wants calm readings to help with focus, relaxation, or sleep, this channel is for you. Please like the video and subscribe.